Many of them do not look for traffic when they walk across the street. Do not. And it's even worse in Chicago. Probably shouldn't have said that, but they do not. Let me get there. They do not look for traffic coming or going or coming from around the corner. Very critical. This is not satire. This is not superior complex. This is not mockery. I'm pointing out differences in operating systems, processing power, cognition, utility that is accessible to us, access granted. Not necessarily so for Caucasians. What's accessible to them may be inaccessible for the majority of them because it's different operating systems. One is the core is built upon 6 DNA series. For Judah, the core, like a computer, the core processor is built upon 9 DNA series. If you think this is separatist, has nothing to do with white power or has nothing to do with insinuations of white power, white supremacy. Just the opposite. I would debate anyone. This is not white power. This is not white supremacy. No, it's not. No, it's not. We're discussing differences, operating systems, processing power, cognition, utility, available, unavailable. The difference of access granted, access denied. It's not a superior complex. It's not separatist. We're just different operating systems. When you put all the pieces together and you sit back, you look up at the ceiling, when you have nothing to do, when you don't have distractions to bother you in your personal life, and you can just contemplate and contemplate and contemplate and contemplate and hyper focus for hours and hours without any distractions. Turn all your electronics off, everything. Put all the pieces together, start to finish. Do a full gameplay walkthrough. And I do this. No, I can't. No, I don't do it on a weekly basis. That's a lie. I do it on. I really gotta. I'm fickle about accuracy. I do it so often though. It's probably better if I say I do it annually. But mostly major events like school. Because you're up close and personal. As far as interactions, exchanges, and then within those exchanges, major and minor sequences of events, and then brushing shoulders anywhere in the Holy Bible Live will be like micro sequence of events. Because number one, when you're coming, they're going. How long does it take for your shoulders to cross paths and interchange? I think I said that right. How many seconds elapses before both of you are now facing each other's back? Micro sequence of events. And then within that sequence, another micro sequence of events. Demeanors, postures, gestures, facial expressions, micro expressions. Pupils dilated, pupils restricted. Every turn of the eyeball, millimeter by millimeter. Crow's feet, enamel, sniffling of the nose. It all means something. Let's just say 3/4 of the time. Boy, nah, that don't feel right. No, that can't be right. Because of the polarity of cultural indoctrination systems. That ain't right. Let's say a coin flip at a time has absolutely nothing to do with you. Your outer appearance, ethnicity, everything associated with your outer appearance. Your income, however because Caucasians do that. They gauge your income based on these trivial fabrics, garments adorned atop your person, atop your flesh. They do things like that. Don't ask me why. That's like an important metric for them. How much you overpaid for some cotton polyester based on the designer of it. The charlatan whose name is adorned across the fashion to let everyone know who's the pimp, who's the bitch. Pretty much in a nutshell. Look again. I would challenge you to look again. In context, grain of salt. And then on top of that, if the glove doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. If it doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you. If I watch a podcast, or my eye gates get exposed to a particular utterance about drug smuggling or distribution of drugs, why would I get convicted? That has nothing to do with me. I'm not a drug dealer. Why would I come under conviction? Why would I have a guilty conscience? Why would I feel some type of way? That has nothing to do with me. That doesn't apply to me. If the glove doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Anyway. I would challenge you to look again. That is not white supremacy. That is not white pride, privilege. Remember, keep in the backdrop. Overall, this is not a separatist thing. This is It's not a black versus white thing. We're different operating systems. I need you to see we're different operating systems. You cannot forget about the reverse psychology and the gaslight rhetoric and the logic behind white supremacy that explains many reverberations as far as total sum of all events, major, minor, both including action and reaction in exchanges with any person of color, referring to the colorless. And those are separate sequences. Those are two separate events. Action, reaction, the total sum of all actions, then the total sum of all reactions. Those are two separate things pertaining to their exchanges with anyone in the Holy Bible life of color, of living color. Now, is that intellectual superiority? Are they aware consciously there's traffic coming and going when they step out into the street to cross? Are they consciously aware? Yes or no? Why or why not? Where is the tunnel vision coming from? The lack of regard for one's own life, value, well-being. Where's this disregard, this blatant disregard coming from? How is that intellectual superiority? How is that privilege or white pride or white power? How? Our exoskeletons are not made of carbon fiber. Anyone who dares to have the audacity, to follow the posted speed limit on the tollway, they lose their temperature. Stop right there. That whole processes right there, that whole internal sequence of events that elevated the temperature, that processes, what does that have to do with intellectual superiority? Please, I'm begging you, please think critically. Why or why not? Let's keep going. And then the talking to themselves. And then yelling at themselves. If you look in your rearview mirror. Inching closer and closer to your bumper. Trying to intimidate. Harass or make you feel intimidated. Is that intellectual superiority? Not dealing with male, female. We're dealing just the manifestation. The physical manifestation in the natural realm of the vehicle inching closer to your bumper. The physical manifestation of them losing their temperature, screaming at themselves, talking to themselves. The physical manifestation of them using inappropriate sign language in your rear view, or when they drive around using inappropriate sign language. What does that have to do with white pride? Or how is that white pride? How is that privilege? How is that white supremacy? What do any of these manifestations have to do with intellectual superiority? The conscious decision to pay a price, X amount of dollars, for hyperinflated fabrics to wear across their flesh, to cover their flesh, to wear on his or her person. 100 times what it costs to produce these fabrics. Shoe wear, jewelry, cosmetology, all of these things, hyperinflated. Yet they buy. Many of them make 3, 4, 20 times what you make annually. 20, 30, 40 times your annual salary. They're still paycheck to paycheck. Or a few paychecks from eviction. CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs, almost scraping to get by because of the lifestyle they live. What does any of this have to do with intellectual superiority? And then correlate, what does financial illiteracy or financial stupidity have to do with intellectual superiority? Knowing there's no way these fabrics cost what they pay for these fabrics on their person, or the cheap fiberglass, cheap plastic, rubber, nuts and bolts. No way what they charge is what it costs to make. Yet they buy. And then not one time. It has to be brand new every year. What does this financial illiteracy have to do with intellectual superiority? Every year has to be brand new fiberglass, cheap plastic. Has to be brand new polyester, cotton, silk, shoe wear. What does any of this have to do with intellectual superiority? I need you to critically think. Allowing their juvenile images, their 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old daughters to either travel by themselves, travel with a friend, or travel with the mom and dad present in just underwear. They're not shorts, they're underwear, because that's how tight, that's how small they are, with no panties underneath. What does any of this have to do with intellectual superiority? This is not white supremacy. This is not white pride. This is not privilege. Quite the opposite. This is total depravity, reprobate mind. All of these physical manifestations in some ways it goes back to the core, the origin of a thing, the root of a thing, 6 DNA series from the Caucasus Mountains. Caucasus Mountains. These are mountain people. It's not a superior complex. It's not separatists. These are mountain people. What do any of these physical manifestations have to do with intellectual superiority? Back to the top of the utterance. The reverse psychology and the gaslight rhetoric behind the logic of white supremacy, dealing with cultural indoctrination systems. What do any of these physical manifestations in the natural realm have to do with white supremacy? This is a reprobate mind. This is Neanderthal. This is, it's almost a savage creature. These are mountain people. Again, what does walking out into traffic, if they're even consciously aware, traffic is coming and going from opposite directions at a speed, at an acceleration of a rate of acceleration that is high enough to fatally injure them? What does not acknowledging any movement of any vehicle, motorcycle, traveling, coming or going to and fro, or from to fro? What does any of this tunnel vision, as if it's 1 a.m. in the morning and there are no vehicles traveling in motion, coming or going as they walk across it? What does that have to do with intellectual superiority? It's not a separatist discussion. We're just different operating systems. One, the core processor is built upon the technology of 6 DNA series. The latter, descendants of Judah, the kingdom of Judah. The core processor is built upon the technology available, accessible within 9 DNA series. It's not superior complex. It's not standing over them or standing under them. I'm showing you the differences. We're just different operating systems, organisms. We're just different programs. The core processors are different, like Dell and MacBook. It's just different systems. They're both MacBooks. It's not about one is better than, they're both MacBooks. They both got here by the Most High. Both MacBooks have the same father. So how is it separatist? Both MacBooks have the same father. How's okay? So it's not a separatist. It's not a superior complex. It's just a cold calculus. It's just based on acknowledging the differences, outlining the differences of the Dell computer system and the MacBook computer system. The demonic word they release. If you say anything over your breath, you dare utter anything over your breath related to their precious holidays and birthdays, you start saying anything about fleshly rituals and customs, they'll release a word at a non-cognitive level. This is not a superior complex. We're just different operating systems. As far as the 3 powers are concerned, the mind, the heart, and then the spirit. And then the 5 stages, what the Holy Spirit gave to me, the 5 stages. You internalize, process, compartment, filter. And then that 4th stage, the filtering stage, is what determines whether or not one can simply understand a thing or one can fathom a thing. Quick visual illustration. The most elite professional athletes They fathom everything there is to know. They fathom. They are the experts of that game. That's why they're referred to from as far as public perceptions go, and then facts, bottom lines. The statistics of these athletes, year after year, championship after championship. The proof is in the pudding. Why you have connotations dealing with public perceptions of certain athletes to be elite or not elite. The ones who are considered by public vote, by public election, based on proof, based on irrefutable evidence, what they leave on the table when it's all said and done and the game is over. Okay, what was taken off the table when it's all said and done. The elite is top pedigree, like the top 5%, football, basketball, hockey, etc. Those individuals, almost like how what am I saying? What am I saying? I think I'm like how milk or cream rises to the top of coffee. Okay, they rise to the top for a reason. They fathom. Everything else in the cup, the remainder of the body in the cup, okay, every particle that makes the liquid that dwells in the cup, okay? Every athlete in NFL, NBA, every athlete, okay? Every particle of that liquid, the 5% rise to the top for a reason. They fathom. The rest of the body of the liquid merely understand a thing. But the 5%, they float to the top because they can fathom a thing. Pattern recognition. The Dell book is just different from the MacBook. Back to non-cognitive reactionary behaviors. When you do release 100% spirit of truth into the atmosphere, and at a non-cognitive reactionary level, as far as behavioralisms, they'll release this demonic word into the atmosphere. They're not mocking you. They cannot fathom what you're saying. It doesn't register. It doesn't compute. Which would, they can, that's stage number 2. They can internalize, but stage number 2 is where the bus stops. You get all these brain farts and hiccups when they try to process a thing. They don't even get to 3, 4, or 5. But they can understand by default, though. They get to stage 5 by default because, you have to understand something. You're sentient. You're competent. You have to understand something. But they cannot fully process it, and they cannot compartment it. So by default, they can understand the thing, but they cannot fathom. That's why at a non-cognitive level, they'll release that demonic word. Quote unquote, Webster would denote, as far as patterns, would denote this particular pattern as far as decimal, the pitch range that's released into the atmosphere. That's a pattern. That's just a pattern. Webster would denote as laughter. And they release that word into the atmosphere because it doesn't compute. It doesn't register. It's not superior complex. Don't take my word for it. Just look again. Look again. I would challenge you to just look again in your own introverted analysis of things. We get caught up and desensitized, and we falsely presume what we can comprehend. Everyone can comprehend. Okay, what makes sense to us makes sense for everyone else. No, incorrect, not true. That's why when you start releasing truth into the atmosphere, you cause friction, you challenge paradigms, you challenge cultural indoctrination systems, you challenge these bankrupt schools of thought, and you start uttering, this needs to be closed, that needs to be closed, this building is run down, that building is run down, shouldn't be any occupants inside this building, shouldn't be anyone dwelling inside this building whatsoever, under no circumstance. And then they'll release that demonic word because that's their school of thought. That's where they learn from. That's their academia. It's their school of thought, some of these indoctrination systems. And they have no plans on dropping out from those curriculums. What's that? Mind control. Now we're getting into full-blown brainwashing with some of these indoctrination systems. And if you ever say anything about immodesty, linguistically speaking, these forbidden languages that women with a Jezebel spirit speak, they have no interest anytime dropping out from any of these schools or rejecting any of the curriculums that they're learning in any of these reprobate schools of, from their perspective, higher learning. But in actuality, only the kingdom of heaven, the Alpha Omega school of thought, is a school of higher learning. They have zero intent on renouncing any of those curriculums from outward appearance, as it deals with repentance, as it deals with returning home. If returning home simply denotes returning back to the future, because that's what we're doing after the credit roll. It's back to the future. Post tense, not past tense. And then any particular school of thought or system of indoctrination that may or may not have been exacerbated by mom, dad, grandma, auntie, uncle, etc. And then the peer selection, then the influence of each peer selected, who grew up under similar indoctrination systems, to exacerbate even worse, so that segments of society flame on. Referring to gaslighting. They just set each other on fire. Has nothing to do with good person or bad person. This stuff is not taught to us. Grade school, high school. And I was never interested in college. Academia is a worldly construct. It's necessary for some, and some are convicted to go to college. And our Father in heaven, he wants it's in his will for some of us to go to college, not all of us. That's not a journey for all of us. And then we don't know what we don't know, lost in sin. Unaware of the limits of our carnal mind in that phase of life. Our carnal mind, carnal cognition, utility, carnal thought life, carnal railway system. Unaware of the theater in constant motion all around us. Nothing but theater. Because the God of second heaven is the God of this world. Nothing but theater. It's presented as truth, spirit of truth. It's presented as reality, but theater is not reality. Theater mirrors reality, but it is not reality. Theater is theater. It's a play. Radio, TV screen, big screen, magazine, computer screen. Theater is theater. It's just that. It's a play. I'm out of time. All praise unto the Most High, Abba Yah, His Son, Jesus, the Christ of Nazareth, Yeshua HaMashiach, Shalom.